Hey, another week at a John Alite, the mob, the mafia, and the man. This week, he's back, everybody. Felix Levine.
Yeah, we're back because so first Arbana is our guest today. And she will tell her story in just a second. But Arbana, just so you understand John and I's dynamic, I hosted a show that was John's show for what, like a year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah, about 2 years.
And then John went down south to Florida and is now living his best retired life over there and does his show there. So this is our first kind of reunion back. So this feels like home. But I am very excited to learn about you personally and your story, which seems very unbelievably fascinating. But first, I guess my question is, how do y'all know each other?
Albanian.
It's true.
Yeah. So we all know each other.
Yeah, I know that's true. These Albanians, they all know each other.
Social media helps a lot.
Yeah.
I know I had to attend this event, and John shared my photo with a call for Albanians to come on the street and protest against Serbia. So I think that was the time that we kind of knew
that's when we
each other.
first,
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like what
she does great work.
She does. But we'll get into that in just a second. But what I've just noted, I'm not Albanian. You could see that. But you guys stick together like no one else. I mean, you guys are like loyal to each other in ways that I've never seen people be together. So I guess real quick, just for people that aren't familiar with a little bit of background about yourself and your story, will you just kind of familiarize the listeners on exactly who you are and what you do?
So I'm Albanian from Kosovo, a journalist. I used to do this job since 2001. So during the war, I was in Kosovo. So I experienced also my childhood during the Slobodan Milosevic regime. And then during the war, not in the beginning, but on the May 2nd, we escaped to Albania because I am from Jakova, and that city known is about being so much destroyed during the war and genocide committed there. So at the time when we were crossing the border, I was very young and I used to know a little bit of English, and there was many media there, and I was telling them what was happening in Kosovo. And then I realized the importance of being journalist and raising your voice out. After the war, I was still in the high school, and then I decided to go in the college for journalism. And I started working for the largest newspaper in Pristina, the capital city. So it was everything new for us. Kosovo, new state. We came up from the war destroyed, completely destroyed. And I was focused on what was happening with our country. A lot of investments were coming from abroad, but we also started having a lot of corruption. Locals, internationals, everyone, because they've been using the situation to just misuse the tenders, the public money, and all that. So the first 10 years I was focused on covering corruption and organized crime. I've been having problems with individuals, businessmen, politicians, and I was very young and they were kind of underestimating me. But then I was many times awarded for my work on covering corruption, but in meantime, in Kosovo, something else was happening. No one was paying attention. Saudis came after the war. They've been using the environment, poor people. They start picking up children, like 10 to 12-year-old boys, girls, and start offering free English and computer courses, and in meantime, asking in return to learn religion. So one of the sudden, everyone was surprised. How come we have young men and women joining Islamic State in 2014-15? And I said, nothing happens within the night. So they start investing and recruiting. So these were victims of Saudis and then Turkey. So in 2012, I decided to go and investigate, go within their houses, at the imams, organize this, all the network in Kosovo, Albania, Macedonia. And I went to London because I find out that the money from this Pakistan organization was coming. So it's just follow the money. It doesn't matter if it's religion, if it's organized crime, just follow the money or you'll realize what was happening. So this is how it started. And then I got real into writing, investigating, and I built my network all over the Balkans and in some EU countries, so Europe. So I've been writing a lot, raising my voice, trying to I've been during the war in Kosovo, and it was just the thing that we didn't fight for religion. There were Muslims, Christians, all for Albanians. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
the religion.
It's not a very religious country. It's a very patriotic. And by the way, you've seen this was the last post that we put up. This is the cemetery of fallen. Our culture is, like you said, is in Arbana knows is not a culture that will fight over religion. You know, there's religious people, but they're not fanatical. And I think one of the people that spoke up against some of this was Ramush Hernandez. Right?
Yeah.
So
former prime minister. So he was the only one, because politicians do flirt with these groups during the pre-election campaign. They go within mosque because imams became very powerful after all this investment. Now, just imagine for your viewers, listeners, Kosovo is the only country with no visa liberalization. So young men and women your age, most of them didn't have a chance to go outside Kosovo. So it is so easy to brainwash them when you do not have perspective or nothing, jobs. So politicians kind of do not speak up against these groups because of the vote. So Ramush Haradinaj was the only one that came up publicly against, and he's been having like Turkish President Erdogan, who does a lot of investment in Kosovo. He kind of insulted publicly Ramush. So he is the only one. And there were just a few of us journalists that we spoke up and we investigated because it's not just the brainwash of the kids, but it also investments. The Kosovo, it's not even 2 million, and there are 1,000 mosques. And these are not mosques for people to pray. These are political mosques. So they use this mosque for the Islamic agenda. So sorry to interrupt you. The thing is that what I've been trying is to save our secular society. We do not, there were some voices came up against Mother Teresa. So Mother Teresa is Albanian, against our national heroes, Skanderbeg. So what scared me was the cultural impact. I didn't want to let these groups and voices to influence our society. I just wanted to open the eyes of the people and just realize that they are doing this for their own interest.
So at what point did you realize that some of these things were taking place? Like, do you remember like the specific moments you're like, wait, there's something going on here?
We start noticing on social media.
And around what time period?
2010, 2011, that something is happening. They came up publicly, openly speaking against, as I said, national heroes, and a lot of youth got involved into the religion. And I said, I'm going to find out what is going on. So
you got to remember when she's talking about Ramush. I was just a guest in Unik in Kosovo, with Ramush, and he's a war hero to Kosovo during the Serbian-Kosovo War. His family, he lost brothers and a brother, and he was one of the great fighters for us, for the freedom of Kosovo against Serbia. So when someone speaks against him, and especially it's insulting to people from our country, especially to a guy that was a hero to the people. So not only what she's talking about, the manipulation of our leaders, our great like Skanderbeg, that I think that's who I have on my back. And most Albanians, our culture, we look up to as a hero for us, as a figure that we would look up to somebody here. I guess like a George Washington or something,
exactly.
A first president. So, this is something for us is embedded in our hearts and our history. To talk against Skanderbeg is a very big thing. To speak against our prime minister or ex-prime minister and the hero he was is also against any of us in our hearts.
Because Albanians are known as most pro-American people. Like, you have streets names by politicians, so American figures. And the thing is that they start influencing the youth. And this was the thing that Albanians are the must trust allies of United States in the Balkans. We are surrounded by enemies, but Serbia is the trusted ally of Russia. So we have the largest military base in the Europe in Kosovo, which is Bonstil, that Americans built. So we were saved by the Western countries. And one of the sudden we have Turkey, which right now and just in the last years, we know the problems that Turkey has with the United States and Turkey has with Europe, even though a NATO member. So these major powers as Saudis, Turkey, they usually use these countries when come up from the war because it's perfect environment for them. When people are poor, you kind of send money and you convince to worship you. So, and then they come close to politicians. Then when they got into institution, they can change laws. They can do whatever they want. So but it didn't happen only in Kosovo. It happened all around the Balkans. You have hundreds of people that join Islamic State also from the Christian countries, from the EU countries. But the thing is that in the country, when there is not rule of law, it was not easy for me to kind of investigate and go within their houses. And I remember in 2012, my older son was 7 years old, and I took him in Macedonia to meet one of the most controversial imams. So when you Google his name, he was suspected to be a part of Al-Qaeda. So I went to his house with my son, like at the time now when I...
You just showed up?
Yeah, no, I called him. I arranged the meeting to interview him. Yeah, so... As I said, I've been receiving a lot of threats, and I remember one time I had an article about how these radical groups that were downtown Pristina spreading materials to children, and I received hundreds of threats. I went to police. I just wanted to report the threats, and one of these young police officer, he was telling me, "But why you are just raising your voice against Islamists? Why you are not raising your voice against Christian organizations?" But right now we do not have problems with them. At the moment when we have problems with them, I'm going to speak up. So see what they are doing. You don't have a problem with
Islam.
I don't have problem with, because imams.
You don't have a problem with Muslims.
No,
it's radicals.
You have a problem with the radicals.
With the radicals,
of course,
because we all have family members of every religion in Albania.
I told you earlier, imams helped me investigate these groups, because when these radicals came in Kosovo, you know who they attacked the first? Liberal imams. They've been telling to imams, this is not the right Islam, because Albanians are known as the light Muslims. So they would say, you are not praying the right way. So there were attacked imams from these groups.
Well, when you have extremists, if you have, like you say, light, meaning they believe in God, they believe in Allah, they don't have the extreme views of violence.
There were, during the war, like it didn't matter your religion. There were Meja, there's this village in Kosovo, over 100 people were massacred. They were all Catholics. There were Muslims killed. But the thing is that we were not in war as Muslims or Catholics. We were as Albanians against Serbia. So one more thing I have to mention. During the Milosevic regime, so Milosevic was telling to United States, don't help Kosovo because Albanians are terrorists, Muslim terrorists. So he's been using this card to show us as danger people, like radicals. Albanians are not like that. As I told you, we are pro-Americans. I would say, like, America is the first for us. Everyone held like American flag. And now what happened after the war, these groups were trying to portray us as what Milosevic was using this card. That's what I was trying to say. This is not right. So that's why when I interviewed parents of the young men and women that join Islamic State, there is this Muslim guy says that this is not who we are. My kids were brainwashed from these groups. I am a Muslim, Americans help us as a Muslims. So, because there is this story, this guy Albanian, come from Germany. He used to live there. He built the factory, and both of his kids start going to this new mosque in their village. And he was telling me, their kids were saying, like, Dad, America is against Muslims. See what they've done in Iraq. And he was opening YouTube channel and showing to his kids that America saved us. But they were brainwashed. Both of them went to Iraq during 2014-15 and got killed there. So their parents, even though it was like, we are Muslim, but we drank beers. So this is like, coffee bars are full of young men and women drinking in Kosovo. And when you read, over 90% Muslims, yes, but we are not an Islamic state.
Right.
So this is the difference for your readers or viewers that don't understand. Even though they are declared Muslims, they do not practice religion as they do in Middle East. Like when you go to Pristina, it's a European country. Even though I wrote a lot on this, I'm not saying the majorities are like this. These are small groups, radicalized, but this might cause us problems. When we want to become an EU member, we might have Spain or Greece or other countries that come up saying, no, we are not going to vote because see the report, see the State Department report. You have 300 men and women join Islamic State. It's dangerous. So, these kind of things might affect us in our future as a country and as Albania.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp and the Elite Show.
Over a lifetime, I think anybody and everybody feels overwhelmed and burnt out. Somebody like myself that went through therapy over the years, it was a convenience to be able to call BetterHelp, connect with somebody right over the phone without leaving my house, and build confidence through a therapist online. And, by doing that, it's really helped me over the years to feel better, to understand when I'm burnt out, and understand when I need to talk to somebody.
BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist. So you don't have to see anybody on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can be matched with a therapist in under 48 hours.
Give it a try and see why over 2 million people have used BetterHelp online therapy. Listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/elite. That's BetterHelp, BetterHelp.com/elite. BetterHelp.
So I also raise my kids like that. So being Albanian, being pro-Western culture. So we have our cause. We are still having problems with Serbia. That we are trying to have this dialogue. Serbia causes us, even though we have our independent state, but we have Russia that is sending munitions all the time to Serbia. It's not that it's going to happen again, the war again, but the thing is that we have to save our cause, being Albanian. So we are all brothers. It doesn't matter if you are Catholic, Muslim, or Orthodox, because you also have Orthodox Albanians in Albania. But so this is what I do consider important, and I'm raising, even though from here I'm raising my voice.
So when you said that you had visited that Imam, you didn't tell us, like, how does that go down? What is the conversation?
Yeah, he was fine. He was just saying to my son, if you want to play in here is my computer, while I was interviewing him. He was like, I interviewed him and it was okay, but you never know.
What does he say?
So I interviewed him about him being involved into Al-Qaeda. Also, he denied everything.
How old is he?
He might be on his 60s now.
And you interviewed him where? In Albania?
In Macedonia.
In 2012?
In 2012 in Macedonia. He's from Skopje.
And so he denies it fully?
Yeah. So it was not the only, it was the other Imam who is very, very, he has a lot of influence in Kosovo. I interviewed him at his house, and I remember he started recording me with his phone, and you cannot record no one without asking the permission.
Right.
Even when I record, this is off the record, this is on the record.
Right.
And he's been asking me questions. So what religion are you? What do your parents do? And all this kind of stuff. And who is paying you to do that? I'm like, I'm a journalist. I work for this newspaper. This is what I do.
Does he travel to the Middle East often?
He traveled to Turkey. I don't know for other... Turkey, I think he finished this school for being Imam somewhere in Middle East. I don't know exactly.
And in Turkey, in your opinion, is it moderate?
Turkey are the people in Turkey?
The Muslim religion. Is it moderate overall? Are they middle of the road?
In Turkey?
Yeah.
They are moderate, but their leader right now, he's very radical, and he is using Islam, and he is persecuting his own people. So the thing is that these imams in Kosovo are also linked with Turkey, and what I've been doing is just asking them where the money is coming from. And he's very rich, as an imam, you have just a salary, and you just where the money is coming from. And he said, you know what, now I know you do not have a clue on religion. I said, why? Because you do not understand. He told me, when I go out abroad, they have this very rich diaspora Albanian, and they give me money to send to this like poor family, but I do not ask from them any document for the money I'm getting. And then you just realize that this is how they do. Or the mosque that they build in Kosovo, I've been checking online the bank system because we had access into some database, and most of the money came cash. Or they've been lying. We are building this house for this poor family, and they build the mosque for their own purposes. Or in Prizren, Prizren is one city, is very known for its culture, and what they've done, they replaced Albanian imam and they bring Turkish guy who was Erdogan's person. So this is what I've been trying to bring in the public. Facts. He's building this mosque. He's doing this to this. He's doing this to this family. So he was getting a lot of main assets, Kosovo assets, like he privatized Pristina airport. He privatized the energy distribution. And when you get into these big financial assets and you have more influence, because economically you're influencing the society for your own purpose. In 2018, Austria was the first European country that banned Erdogan to organize pre-election campaign because Europe knew that he is using EU states for his own. But it didn't happen in the Balkans. And that's why for Albanians it's very important to move toward EU integration and to kind of remain strong in the alliance with the United States and Americans. And we cannot let our society to be influenced and destroyed by this.
It's very hard for Kosovo Albanians to move into the EU, and one of the reasons is relationships. France has a big relationship with Serbia, so there's a conflict between that and Albania also.
So the thing is that Serbia has the Russian, and now with the Ukraine war scares a lot what might happen to other countries that are not a NATO member. Right. And now we are waiting for hopefully get the visa liberalization. And as I'm saying, a lot of problems. And it was not only me, there were some my colleagues that we used to write about this rise of Islamic radicalism in the Balkans. And I said in Albania, in Macedonia, in some parts of Serbia. So, but as I said, when I went to London, I find out this Pakistan organization. It was sad when I went to their location. If you see this big, very expensive cars outside this building, and
in the UK,
and when I went there, and there was this guy came up with a long beard and short pants, and I was saying, I'm going to meet this guy from this organization. And he said, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Kosovo. And he said, I am Albanian. And it was very, very sad to see this young man, Albanian, working for that organization. They've been bringing money to the orphans and building illegal mosques, and it's like in the movies. You go, and when you go to the village in Kosovo and see how poor they were and not knowing what was going on with their kids, and just talking to their parents, how they felt after they realized that they lost their kids. You kind of lose them. When they go after this ideology, they are totally brainwashed.
So what are what are the conversations that you had with some of the, because you mentioned like you've had conversations with some of these kids that have been brainwashed?
Yes.
Like how do you approach it yourself? And then B, like what do the conversations look like?
There was one guy that used to follow one of these imams, and he told me that he was that much brainwashed. At one moment when he saw his dad drinking beer, he was thinking to kill his own dad because he was brainwashed that you cannot drink beers. How come? He was saying, my dad, we are Muslims, he's not allowed to drink. But he was young when he started going to
How old?
mosque. He was like 12 after the war, and then listening all time to the way these imams were preaching to them, talking to them. They got showing all these videos and following them. So, but he was lucky because his family then helped him getting out from.
Are these imams preaching anti-West, anti-America?
Sometimes, yes. This is what, yeah.
And is the media in Kosovo, Macedonia covering this in Albania?
Used to cover, but not that much, because now they have a lot of money. Now they have their own media. So they have like their own machinery, like online machinery to kind of bring something else. We are a few journalists that we write about. So whatever we say now, their media attack us. So they do fake news against me. I am on media every day. They say like, Arbana is she will shut down all the mosques, which is not true. I have thanked many times.
So yeah, let me clarify something on camera.
Yeah.
So are you pro-Muslim as long as they're not extremist? Do you have a problem with just a Muslim religion or no?
I do not have problems with Muslim, with Islam.
Catholic religion?
No.
Christian?
I have problems with radical groups.
I just wanted to clarify that for people so they don't change your words while we're on the air of where you stand.
Thank you for asking this question. I'm against the major powers as Turkey is trying to change our mindset. Like, as I said, we are pro-Americans. Do you want to see Albanians being pro-Erdogan? No.
Well,
so historically we were supported from West. If there was not West to decide NATO to attack Serbia, I don't know if I will be today here with you and talking.
See, the problem is when you go into prison or you go to Skopje or you go to, anywhere in Kosovo, I travel those cities from city to city. So outsiders come into the city, they're not going to see or experience what you're saying. So this is why you're going to get people questioning what you're saying or attacking.
You mentioned Ramush. Ramush is not a Catholic. But
no, I know.
Exactly. So people like Ramush, which Albanians were all Catholics. During the Ottoman Empire, the Ottoman Empire forced them to change their religion. So
I'm very pro him, so you know.
So that's what I mentioned you, Ramush, as a Muslim, but of course not practicing religion. He's against this group. So
because he's a very moderate,
exactly,
intelligent.
There are moderate Muslims that are against. As I told you, imams helped me to do my job. Without their help, I wouldn't find out what is going on. Because as a woman, you cannot go into their community. It's hard to get into their community and get more information. So you have to approach on Friday where are all men praying at the mosque and listen to the way the imam is preaching. It's not easy. Now I had my sources, they were recording them and then bringing me information, see what they are doing, see what they are talking. Or when I went to this Islamic community and I was asking for their budget, where is the money coming from? Where you are spending money? And I had my sources there to provide me with documents. So I am very thankful. I want to thank, they are not just my source, they are good friends of mine. Mm-hmm. And they helped me a lot and they are still helping me with a lot of information just to and save what we are all known. We are always known as Albanians.
Let me ask you a question. You were attacked at one time.
Yes.
Right? Physically.
Yes.
You were beat up. Was that in Albania?
It was in Pristina in 2017. What happened? I've been raising lately a lot of concern on Turkey. Turkish ambassador in Pristina, she wrote a letter to the government and she asked the government to arrest me and one of my colleagues there because we were speaking up against what they've been doing in Kosovo. So I've been going on field, recording, taking photos, talking a lot what they've been doing. So they find out where I live, which is not hard. It's a small city. And they came right to the door, my apartment door. They draw the Red Cross. Police came and they told me, don't worry. If they want to do something to you, they wouldn't just warn you. with this sign. Like, if a police officer tells you that you kind of, I don't know. I was not scared. I was concerned though, but not scared. Then 2 or 3 weeks later, I went to Albania at this primetime TV show, and they've been asking me about what Erdogan was doing. But it was not the first time, because I was at least once or twice on the week on the media, on TV. So I've been talking that we should be just keep an eye open what he said and what he's doing. And that night, I was not driving. I was with the 2 drivers, and when I came back home, I wanted to go to the parking garage and get some stuff from my car. And they've been planned. Everything was planned. It was dark because at the parking garage there were no lights. Mm-hmm. At the moment I opened the car, someone grabbed my hair and shut my mouth so that I couldn't scream. The other one was punching me, but at that moment, the fear of if you are going to be raped or killed, you kind of just think about what I'm going to die. And you do not feel the pain that much because you're focused on something else. I don't know how long it was. Maybe it was 2 or 3 minutes, maybe less. I fell down, and because my light on my phone was on, since I was walking on the parking garage, I found the phone, and there was blood in my hand. And one of this moment, I thought I would be maybe shot, or I don't know. That's why I'm not feeling pain, because they said that you might not feel the pain.
Right.
But the blood was coming up from my mouth. And what I've done, I called the drivers that were with me earlier. And I told them I am attacked. And I didn't know if these people were still there. I hear the steps walking, like working out, but I didn't know who's there, how many of them there are. So a night before, my youngest son had birthday. So at that day, we were celebrating at 6. I was traveling around 7 o'clock in Albania, which is 2-hour drive. And it was 1 o'clock in the morning when the attack happened. My family was on the 6th floor, so I didn't want, because I didn't know what my condition is. I didn't want to stress them out. So the drivers came, they called the ambulance, and I was not seeing very well because they pushed me into the wall, and I had problems with I still have a little bit problems with my right eye. I was sent to the emergency room, and then the police came, and someone leaked the photos of me in the hospital. I was all over the media. Everyone reacted, all the ambassadors. And I went back home.
Did they denounce it in the media? The ambassadors, when they reacted to what happened? So
what happened? Yeah, everyone reacted and condemned the attack. But I was, as I said, brutally attacked. Police took a statement, but they didn't took a photo of my body. And then the marks vanished after a while. The U.S. ambassador came into my apartment to visit me. And I told him that police is not taking seriously my case. And he said, why? And I said, no one took a photos or got into details what happened to me. And then he called the head of police, and he said that you should take seriously this case. And after U.S. ambassador asked this from the police guy, and they came, but they did nothing. So I was contacted by the journalist organization in the United States, and they told me, we are going to finance you. Get out, because you are in danger. You are not safe there. As I told you, I was during the war in Kosovo, and I grew up being journalist and loving my country. I risked my own family, myself, my kids, and it's not easy to decide and leave the country. I came here in 2017 after the attack during the summer, because the attack happened on May 13. And I went back hoping that they will find out who did it. And the police like, we are treating this case as a murder, and we took like 20,000 phone calls that happened around here. There were cameras all over there. Like, how come you do not have a single person suspected that attacked me? And they had many threats that I received. Before the attack, they sent me a photo of a killed person, his head cut off, all the blood, and they said, we know how much you love your own children, and we're gonna find you. I was setting all this at the police, and they could track them. These days you can track through internet their IP address, and they did nothing. So no one was arrested. And then the prosecutor that had my case, and I find out that the prosecutor used to do like traffic cases. Like, how can someone that was dealing with traffic
cases handle
investigate the attack?
Do you have any suspicions of who it was?
When you receive hundreds of threats, how come?
Right.
You don't know.
Do you know if
they might be someone? They might be someone that I wrote against organized crime.
Did you see anything about him? Age, size, weight?
The guy that was holding me, he was very big. I felt tiny. I don't know. I couldn't see them because he was shut in my mouth and holding me, while the other one, they tried to break my leg because they were punching me.
Did they hit you with any kind of weapon?
I think that they hit me with their leg, on my leg. So at that moment you feel like this part, the neck is swollen because you cannot breathe. Mm-hmm. It might be seconds, but it felt longer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The guy that was holding me, I know that he was very big, because I know you are on his body, you can kind of feel how big he is.
Right.
So it's hard just to go over that again. 5 years now, still nothing.
And for your kids, how do you even bring that up as a conversation, like when you see them? And
you saw the photo of the Red Cross, so my youngest son was the first to see that.
How old is he?
At that time he was 7.
Okay, so he's 11, 12 now. And the older one?
12. And it was not easy for them to see me attacked. And especially the older one at the time, he was very much concerned. And when they were seeing these men with beard and short pants known as Wahhabis, it was like, Mom, look at them. They were afraid that I'm going to have problems with each of them. And just recently I was attending the conference against Erdogan, and there were most of them Turks and a lot of women covered, and they've been talking me with so much respect. And my older son was with me there, and he said, you see, in Kosovo they think that all the Muslim hates you, but it's not true. You have people that they value what you're doing, and they know that your cause is about human rights. It's not about the anti-religion. So it's still not easy for them just to come here and live and change everything. And it's all, and I kind of blame myself because of me. So I know, especially the younger one, he was in depression when we came here. To change the environment, school and family and everything. And now they are reading news against me, and they keep asking me questions. What is going on?
Well, there's a difference between I was in prison with terrorists. Mm-hmm. So I know the mindset of extremists because I went after some of them, right? One I hurt in prison, and he was pretty famous here, involved in shooting rockets at our troops and different. So I understand them, and I understand moderate, God-loving Muslims. And there's a big difference from extremists to
it's huge difference.
Muslims that love God and family and are just gentle.
And Muslims that are patriots.
Albanians or from whatever country they're from. So exposing the extremists you're a threat to them because you're exposing certain things about them that they don't want exposed. And we have friends of mine that are in the studio and other places who went to war in different places against these extremists. And this is what America's about a pot of different religions, but religions that are not extremist. And there's a difference between one and the other group. And I want to make sure that people that are watching this, that are just religious, but kind and loving and normal, is a difference of what you're saying.
Exactly. We were talking about extremist groups, not the majority of society.
Right.
As if you just Google the last time when Madeleine Albright came in Kosovo, and Bill Clinton, and who else was 2018, 500,000 people were on the streets waiting, and Wesley Clark, the general during the NATO, during the war. So you have kids named by Madeleine Albright, Tony Blair. Like, how can you identify the whole society as radicals? And this is what Serbia was trying to do. That's why I didn't want. I'm a single person. I cannot prevent anything. I am not an institute. I didn't have bodyguards. I was all alone on the street. Yes, I had the support of the United States. I could go anytime at the U.S. Embassy. I had U.S. diplomats that say me, come into our house if you're not feeling safe.
Albanians love Clinton because he came to our aid.
During the war, they were here. The thing is that Albanian, no matter who is in the power, they love everyone. So they do not hate any of the presidents. I know George Bush, when he came, when there was a lot of media against him at the time, the war in Iraq, people loved him. And everyone was surprised. Everyone loves Americans and whoever is in the administration here, because we are very thankful what happened and the support we still have. And all the administration during the Trump, we got our army, even though NATO said no. Trump said yes, you're going to have the army, and we have the army. During Clinton, we were saved. So now during the Biden was not president when we named the street by his son that passed away. So Albanians are trying to find all the ways to thank United States and other Western countries for what they have done. Did
you ever at any point want to get out of your line of work just because of your safety?
No. Every time, I'm telling you, it was not just when I was writing about extremist Islamist groups, but also when I was writing about organized crime, corrupted people. You know, there was this guy that came and he said, I'm going to burn you alive. You kind of get more strength, and even though, because I knew that there was the way they are going to silence me. And no, I was not, and I'm still not, even though I have my family back home.
So
I continue to write.
What's it like for you to be next to this guy who was part of organized crime for a while? Like, what, because you've done a lot of research on that. Like, what is your discovery about people that are, in organized crime? Obviously, John's reformed and he's out of that life at this point.
Yeah.
But it must be kind of interesting because you have a lot of background in that, in probably different types of organized crime, I'd imagine.
Yeah, different. But what I've been reading about John was fascinating. Now, the way you are using your background now in benefit of the youth, because you are a credible source. I can talk about organized crimes. I've been writing, but it's different. Even in different fields, like I said to these liberal imams, come and speak up, because these young men will believe you more than me, because I do not preach. So that's why you as a voice, you can influence for better the society. So this is very important when it doesn't matter from which field you are coming to speak up. And a person as John has been involved and now bringing up which are the dangerous way. You should keep in mind this and that. It's fascinating, and it's very, very important.
Yeah, for you, did you ever imagine that you would have kind of these kinds of conversations with people as educated and as smart as Arbana when you were back in your day?
No, back in the day, you're living for yourself, and the problem with any kind of source is power with power comes more corruption. So I think when you experience and understand it, and you get into where you're getting in the levels, people feel threatened that you're going to take their power from them. And when you take their power, that's what they fear, and that's where the violence comes in, is because they want to protect their financial stance and where they're going in their journey. But as you go into some place from where I came from, you're looking at, you understand, because I'm as involved in all this. From the street level, I understand what the pitfalls are, I understand the manipulation, and I understand the separation and how that's maneuvered. Because the concept's the same, whether it's the mafia, whether it's street gangs, whether it's religion. And so, I can see through it, I think, before the average person can see it, because we understand it.
You understand the mindset of that. They were trying to corrupt me. I was very, very young when I started investigating this company, this construction company, one of the biggest one, and they were doing illegally building. So I've been saying that you cannot build there because you do not have permission. So as I said, is when you had writing for the media, the main media, and your voice gets spread more. So I went to meet this guy, and I don't know how you call in English, this kind of the small office built in the field, all surrounded with glass. So I went into to meet the main guy of the company. It was him and his son, and he was telling his son, go out. And I was like, why? He's asking his son to go out the office. And he was telling me, I had this small bag here, and he was telling me, would you work for me? I'm like, no, I work for Coaditore, this newspaper. It's like, would you become journalist for me? And I said, no, why would I? And he took some money out of his pocket, and he was trying to put that money in my bag. And I was like, no. And he pushed me at the door, and all of his nails were on my hand because he pushed me. So he was trying, like, I was holding my bag like this, and he was trying to put the money. And the way he's pushing my hand, all of his nails, so the mark of his nails. So I went to the office. I was maybe 20. Wow. I sat at the computer and I described everything, like, kind of, you do not think that you might get into trouble if you just expose what is very powerful, because it's not just being a businessman, it's being linked with power. When you're linked with power, you are not saved, because no one will save you. So I published everything. So then there was like, wait a minute, she had someone else support, because why she's not afraid to just come up and as just a single person, no one behind me. And I think that this is the power of being not corrupted, because they can easily then silence you. If they have something to say, you know what, you cannot write this article because we have information that you got money. It's just, I know, because a lot of journalists everywhere in the world, they get corrupted. And when you get corrupted, then it's done. You cannot be independent, and you cannot be a credible source. So even though I start writing as 18 years old, there were many times they were trying to corrupt me. But then they have realized that, no, that's not going to happen. And even now, they can say whatever they want, but not a single one can say that I get money for anyone else or anything else. So at this point, I'm proud of myself, because I was very young and at the young age. But I think it's also the education from the family and all that, like, kind of helps you.
Do you come from anybody in your family in the journalist field, or no? My
uncle, he published book. He writes a lot of the historical facts on how Albanians used to be. But no, my dad he finished computer science, and my mom is a nurse. So.
And what is your family's kind of reaction towards all of these different events in your life?
They were proud. It was funny because at some point I was afraid to some animals, and I remember my grandma like, "These ISIS guys, they don't know the kind of you are afraid of." But I had their support. But when I was very young when I had my kid. I was on my early 20s when I had my first boy. But they never said stop doing this. So I know they've been concerned. but they were proud, and I had their support. And I know that I caused them a lot of problems.
Yeah.
It's not easy, because my mom said even these days there were people that, oh, you're Arbana's mother, so she wrote this and she wrote that. It's not easy, but they were proud, especially when I received an award as a woman of courage. And of course, United States will not award someone who will, at this case, be an Islamophobe.
Right.
So they read all of my articles. They knew what my cause was. So I was not just a journalist. I was speaking up on a daily basis.
Where do you feel like ISIS is today?
Yesterday I was writing a piece on how they are trying to reorganize. So it doesn't matter if it's ISIS, if it's Al-Qaeda, name it however you want. It's the ideology. The ideology is pretty much alive.
Wow.
Yeah.
And do you feel like it's like what's your gauge on how strong it is today?
In some parts of Africa right now, but the thing is that you never know. These days it's easy to recruit, because it's not just going into the mosque. No,
you got social media is easy.
It's social media. It's so easy. Then you have very, very smart students. So they are everywhere. So they know how to be silenced.
Right.
So you can have army, but you don't know where they are exactly. So there is this show in Netflix which explains exactly how two Swedish, not Muslim, Swedish guy, in cooperation with Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, they've been planning to do the terrorist attack in Stockholm, which explains that it doesn't matter the religion, it's ideology that gets involved, especially the youth. There are some Muslim families, liberal, not Albanians, we're talking in Europe, their kids are getting more and more religious. The thing is that now you have this youngest generation that are more religious because of the activism of these groups also in Western countries. And as we know, in Germany, there is a big community, and you have a lot of hateful attacks, anti-Semitism attacks. But in meantime, you also have Islamophobe attacks, because at this time you have two groups that get more active.
What's
at
all the
one
extremes?
time. Yeah, extremes from both parts.
Both sides,
It doesn't matter if there is a covered girl that she's extremist, or a man with a beard and the short pants. So, but the thing is that I do blame also security agencies as FBI, CIA, Mossad. You have to know the mindset. You can come in Albania, but you cannot treat all the extremist groups equally, because it depends where they are growing up, their mentality, how they are fed with this. You cannot talk the same with me and you if you're growing up in America and us living under the regime. So yeah, but it's a lot of things going on. We have a lot of different threats. See now what is going on with Russia. Started the war in Europe. Basically, you don't know what might happen, but the radical ideologies are very much alive.
What is the maybe like the common theme from your conversations when you're talking to some of these brainwashed individuals?
I'm gonna mention an example. There was this young lady in Pristina, both of her parents doctors, and she went to one of the school when her friend sitting next to her was talking with her about Islam. She comes from the Muslim liberal family.
How old is she?
Now she might be in early 30s,
Okay.
but she was very young. She was in high school.
Okay.
In Kosovo, even though, as I said, majority Muslims, the headscarf is not allowed until you turn 18. So they are not allowed to go in the high school with headscarf. So she was not allowed to cover. After she finished high school, she was all covered, all with gloves. And I interviewed her, and she said that when she was covered, she was seeing that she's different from the whole society. But she was only listening and following these radical imams, not liberal ones.
Was she mainstream? Did she have a lot of friends, or was she an introvert? What was she?
Yes.
Yeah.
But she was kind of the middle, both sides. Those that were covered and the others were very, very liberal. And she was very much brainwashed. And she said that but she had kind of the glass, was not allowed to dig further on Islam, on religion. The only thing that she was listening to these imams, and that's all. She won, I think, a fellowship. She went in Switzerland for a couple of weeks. And she's very smart. And she said, I start thinking and realizing that the world is much bigger. And she find out that it's not the reality of what she find out from these imams. And she said, one of the sudden, if there is a God, and why would I be shamed for showing my skin? Why would I be shamed for showing my hair? So I think after 2 or 3 years, she removed the headscarf. Now she's a doctor, same as her family. Her family was concerned because they knew that she got influenced by these groups. She was very young, but she was smart, and she had the chance to go outside Kosovo and see the reality. And I remember I had this babysitter that came into my house. She asked me, do you mind if I pray 5 times a day? And I said, no, I don't mind if you pray 5 times a day. But I knew that she doesn't know the reality. And I said to her, look at this photo. I was in Austria, in Vienna, and there is this big church. And there is this covered woman inside the church just visiting. And she was like, no, it's haram to go in church. It's just so sad because so brainwashed that she didn't know what the basic of religions are.
So you've noticed that like some of these people, once they leave these like high concentrated brainwashed places, that they're able to kind of like be unbrainwashed?
Yes, and it's very important for Kosovo to get visa liberalization. When the youth have the chance to go outside Kosovo and see the reality, it's not easy to brainwash them.
But so this young girl that you're speaking about, do you feel, did she ever mention if she felt like when she was younger that she'd be on a path to commit like an act of violence, for example?
No. Not all these extremist groups were thinking about to commit an act of violence.
So, but in their eyes, what's the why be radical if not to impose it on others? Like what, like for her, what's her reasoning to wanting to be radical?
Because it depends what you read. Even these days, you get influenced by media, right? You support a certain political parties. You might read more about them. They've been exposed into this information. It's like if you expose, you know how to, they know, because they are very, very smart. They speak thousands of languages. They've been showing footages of Iraq and the war there. And like, see, they have destroyed Iraq. They start thinking that United States is bad. They are against.
Well, because they're only getting information that they want to feed them.
Exactly. And so they do not have the other side of information. But the other thing is that in 2010, there were 2 Albanians born and raised in Germany, and they did commit the terrorist attack in the Frankfurt airport against these American soldiers. They were brainwashed in EU, not by Albanians, by other extremist groups. So what I'm trying to say is the whole network. So they kind of know where to recruit and how to brainwash them.
So let me ask you, because we got to wrap it up. Yeah. Where are you going after this? Where are you heading? What's your future look like? What are you looking to accomplish?
So I have meetings, for example, with State Department. Even while I was in Kosovo, I was trying just to help them, the policymakers, to help with the strategy, because we cannot attack the whole society because we have hundreds of people that are recruited. You have to know the way. You have to know the narratives to use against them. So I'm trying to help policymakers to come up with a solution, the way how to fight. You cannot send them to jail. You know better. If you send an extremist guy, he can influence other prisoners. So this is not the solution. You have to know the way how to, and you cannot marginalize. Like if you isolate them, it becomes more dangerous. Now we have many women with their children coming back from Syria. They were part of ISIS. These children were born there. You have to know how to work with them and not let them into the hands of these extremist groups. So this is what I'm doing and trying to raise my voice, but also work with the policymakers on fighting the
We definitely love to have you back on in the future again.
Thank you.
Where can people find you and follow you and all of that?
Yeah, I just Google my name, Arbana Xharra, XAJRRA, and I am on Facebook, more active, Twitter, Instagram. So
Beautiful.
this is where I publish everything.
Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.